And so away we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Wherever you happen to be in the world today, welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you happen to be listening anywhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you could find us Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, or 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and on Prepper University. That is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to jump off here, hope everybody is having a good day so far. Of course, I will go ahead and read through some of the comment section and say hello to the people that are joining us for the live portion. See, Tuck is here. He says, please like, share, and subscribe on both channels. That would be nice if you don't mind. Brian is here. Helter is here. Dragon. Jeff, Puck, looking for cats. Sven is here. He's back in Michigan. Kimberly is here. John is here. Says cat power. Everybody wants cats. I have a cat with me today. There's Miss Granny Smith in front of the albums that I'm sorting through. Taking a nap on the floor, keeping me company. No other felines in the room at the moment. As we get ready to jump off here. Of course, you saw the thumbnail, and we're going to get to that. There's a lot to talk about today, though. But we will get around to the thumbnail and talking about the hypocrisy of the media where it comes to Donald Trump here. See, David has joined us. First of all, I wanted to bring up something about Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls! Slowly I turned, step by step. Inch by inch. Who knows that reference? One of you, yes, Kimberly says Granny Smith, the fake feral. Well, she was feral. She was born in the wild and lived under a person's shed who fed her. I've told this story before. Lived under a shed and noticed she was limping. And so we took her, and it turns out she had a broken elbow, but it had been broken for so long it never healed. It never set right. So she's permanently crippled now. She walks with a limp. But she's not in pain. She just has a limp now. And Kimberly said Three Stooges correct from their Niagara Falls sketch. Something that they used to do in vaudeville before becoming the Three Stooges was the Niagara Falls bit. Daily Mail article. I found this interesting because you have essentially a public official from Canada admitting that the whole migrant thing is out of control there. Finally, Daily Mail again. Niagara Falls at breaking point with migrants filling hotels as the country goes to the polls. Let's see if anything's done about it. Niagara Falls is at a breaking point after thousands of asylum seekers have taken refuge in the popular tourist hotspot. The city's mayor has warned. The famous southeastern Ontario city has more migrants per capita than any other city in Canada. Niagara Falls Mayor Jim Diodati? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The influx has placed strain on the city's services, hospitals, and schools, Diodati claims. Adding that our shelters are full, our transitional housing is full, the drug problem is like nothing we've ever seen before. He also claims that many of the city's 15,000 hotel rooms have become temporary housing for migrants waiting for their asylum claim to be processed, which Diodati alleges is creating problems for the properties and other local businesses. Yeah, because they destroy it all. Not only that, but this is a tourist town, and you can't accept any tourists because they have nowhere to go. Quote, there's been people who've called and said, are the asylum seekers at this hotel? Diodati told the newspaper they want to stay where they feel like they're on vacation with other travelers, not migrants. Over 54,000 asylum seekers arrived in Canada last year, according to the Telegraph. At its peak, Niagara Falls, with a population of just over 100,000 people, hosted 5,000 asylum seekers. But Diodati now fears his country and city will face a surge in border crossings as illegal migrants in the U.S. try to flee President Trump's immigration crackdown. Well, so you want to admit there's a problem. It comes as Canadians go to the polls today to elect a new prime minister, which ultimately, just like in the United States, the actual voting process doesn't matter so much as the electoral college here. They have something similar in Canada. A referendum on former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, whose popularity declined toward the end of his decade in power. It wasn't just the end of his decade. It declined the entire time he was in office, as food and housing prices rose and immigration surged. The prices rose to fund the immigration because those people don't work. Somebody's got to pay for them to exist. Immigration is a key issue in today's election, fueled in part by housing shortages and the surging cost of living crisis. Poilievre has accused the out-of-touch Liberal Party, which has been in power since 2015, inflating housing costs, driving up food prices, having unleashed crime in the streets, and ruined the immigration system. Diodati echoed Poilievre's claim, alleging migrants in Niagara Falls have taken the lower rental housing in the city, which he says leaves less for locals. He also highlights the impact on the migrant surge has on tourism, alleging the upper scale restaurants in Niagara Falls are struggling because the hotels are filled with people who couldn't afford fine dining. I love it. Don't they take the welfare card? I don't know what they call it in Canada. In the United States, it's the SNAP card for food. Asylum seekers who are eligible to work while their case is being decided do provide a steady stream of entry-level labor for tourism-dependent cities, according to the Telegraph. However, Diodati warns that a decline in American tourism visiting Canada will leave a devastating impact on Niagara Falls, and that tourism has already fallen 25% in the last year. I'm surprised it's not more than that. 25%. And Jane is here, says they're back. And Fluke Man is here. Yeah, Jane. Granny Smith is here. I'll show you again. There she is, laying in front of the albums I've been sorting through, taking a nap. Granny Smith, of course, is the one that adopted the fish that you sent to our P.O. box, the little electronic fish. And Monkey is joining us. It's just nice to see lawmakers in Canada finally admitting they have a problem. And of course, they're going to blame Trudeau and that party, but then you're going to end up electing somebody as bad, if not worse, than Trudeau, aren't you? Isn't that the problem? Doesn't that just compound the problem? You're telling us that tourism is down 25% because people don't want to go and stay in that area because it's full of migrants. They want to go see Niagara Falls. They don't want to see downtown Lebanon. Okay, that's not what people are going to Canada for. They could go to a third world country if they want to. Canada's becoming one. They're running it into the ground. They have a massive immigration problem, just like the United States. Not nearly as bad as the United States, but bad enough under the circumstances. JJ is late. He wants to know if he has to sit in the corner. That's all right, JJ. We'll let you go this time. We'll let you go this time. Still getting ready to go into the thumbnail. It's really a shame what has happened in Canada and the direction that it's gone in, how destructive it's become. The country is ruined. It's unrecognizable. I was thinking about showing the video clip. But of course I get in trouble for certain video clips. And it's an area in, I think it's Calgary, where the snow is thawed and it's like 6 inches of trash. left behind by the people that are living out there in the streets. All these migrants that have filled that part of Canada, like 6 inches of trash for several city blocks under the melted snow. That's what they're turning it into, because they bring the third world with them. They're not interested in integrating into a society. They bring their society with them and want you to change. Well, if you love where you came from so much, go back. Go back. It's not helping. It's not helping. And they talk about, oh, we need them for jobs. You're better off having a deficit of employees than a deficit of jobs. This is what a lot of people don't understand about all this. That's what a lot of people don't understand about all of this. I would rather that there's more jobs than employees than the other way around. Jane says, who attacked Iran? I'm not sure. Didn't see that story. This is another one before we get to the nature of the thumbnail. And I'm opening this one for clarification on a few things. Not Colorado. You'll see, Jane. New York Post article, dramatic moment, DEA raids underground nightclub frequented by MS-13 in Colorado, arresting more than 100. I think it's something to the tune of about 117 people total have been arrested out of that nightclub. They had 300 law enforcement officers on site surrounding the building to make sure no one could get away. Now, what's important about this is that there's a lot of rumors flying around that the nightclub was being guarded by members of the armed services. That they said, oh, there's like 15, 20 armed guards in that nightclub, and that those guards are soldiers, active duty soldiers from the U.S. Army, which is true, but they were plants. I don't know if this article talks about that, but I wanted to bring that up because that's the rumor that's flying around right now. It's like, oh, they had security guards from the Army working for them. Yeah, they were there, but they were there undercover. It was part of the sting. So dramatic footage captured the moment hundreds of DEA agents descended on a Colorado nightclub over the weekend, detaining more than 100 illegal immigrants in an early morning raid. More than 300 law enforcement officers from federal and local agencies were involved in the operation, seizing drugs and weapons from the underground nightclub Sunday morning in Colorado Springs. A total of 114 illegal migrants were detained. I heard it was 117, but 6 of one, half dozen of the other. In the raid on the underground club, allegedly frequented by members of the MS-13 criminal organization, according to authorities, federal officers can be seen breaking a large front window of an unbranded building as people flee into the night, many wearing outfits suitable for a nightclub, according to video posted online by the DEA Sunday morning. Yeah, I would say so. Oh man, I hope that's a woman in that one picture. These people come to the nightclub just dressed like they're so sexy and can't even fit into the clothes that they're wearing. I don't know. I don't know what to say. My God. Additional armed federal agents can be seen stopping people trying to escape. This is the police with a search warrant demanding entry. Quote, exit the front door one at a time with nothing in your hands, held high above your head. Agents could be heard telling patrons outside the building, followed by instructions in Spanish. Over a dozen active duty service members, here's where the Army comes into it, were undercover as security guards or nightclub patrons during that raid, according to the DEA. And there you go. Look at the contents from one person's pockets. There's a key fob, some pills, a receipt. I don't know where that receipt's from, but a couple of receipts, actually. One of them looks like they're from Walmart. A cell phone, a Mexico passport, and about $3. You know what? Clubbing with $3. And Puck says, "Ay caramba, indeed." So I know they're circulating rumors online. Oh, they actually had they had people from the military base working security. That's true, but it was known. They were planted there. They were planted there as part of the raid. And a piece of weave. There's some weave in this photo. Who goes to the nightclub? I guess if you're female, you expect you're going to be paid for. Incredible. It says, what is happening inside with significant drug trafficking, prostitution, crimes of violence. We seized a number of guns there. We had active duty service members who were running security at the club and involved in some of these crimes. Oh, okay. DE, that's why. So there were also service members who were part of it, as well as service members who were plants, which is probably why the military allowed for that. DEA Rocky Mountain Division Special Agent in Charge, Jonathan Pullen, said during a news conference Sunday morning. Okay, I'll read that again. Drug trafficking, prostitution, crimes of violence, seized a number of guns. We had active duty service members who were running security at the club and involved in some of these crimes. So it was a mixture. It was a mixture. It says DEA agents also found cocaine and pink cocaine, also known as Tusi. Pullen went on. I'm not familiar with that. 2 people were arrested on outstanding warrants. Blah, blah, blah. 200 people were inside. At least 114 were in the country illegally. 200 people inside. 114 were in the country illegally. The rest of them are just going to be arrested anyways, I guess, because of what was going on in that club. Incredible. Just having a fun night out. Hanging out with the boys. Can't go anywhere. But it was an underground club. It wasn't on an official club. It was underground. And again, apparently there were active duty service members that were there undercover as well as working in the club. So it's a combination. It's a combination of things. Just for clarification now, because I was not aware. I had heard that, well, the rumor that's going around is that they were all dirty, that they were all working there and involved, and they're not. But there were a few that were. And that's what's going on. Puck says cocaine gets its color from the gasoline they use in the processing. Is that, did they get that from, what is the name of that movie? Die Another Day? I'm trying to remember. It's one of the, not Pierce Brosnan. I'm trying to, Timothy Dalton, right? Timothy Dalton. And he was only in 2 films, Living Daylights and License to Kill. And I think the second film, which would be License to Kill, they were smuggling the cocaine in gasoline, and they had a process of filtering it out. Nature Nerd wants to know if the military ran the illegal party. Not as far as I'm aware. And this also happened. Before we get to the thumbnail, I'm going to get to it. There's so much happened over the weekend. It's just crazy. I'm going to get to it, though. The has to do with Virginia Giuffre. And you might have seen this in the media over the weekend. Wall Street Journal, prominent Jeffrey Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, if I'm pronouncing that right, dies, age 41. And this makes me think that they were about to move forward with cases again, because the most vocal person willing to be a witness is no longer with us. So Virginia Giuffre, one of the most prominent accusers in Epstein trafficking scandal, has died by, let's say, her own hand. Since I can't say the word on YouTube, she died by her own hand, leaving behind 3 children. So Virginia was a fierce warrior in the fight against abuse and trafficking. According to statements, she was the light and lifted so many survivors despite all the adversity she faced in life. She shone so bright. The family adds, because that's a quote, a statement from the family. In the end, the toll of abuse is so heavy it became unbearable for Virginia to handle its weight. I find that hard to believe, as vocal as she was. I find this to be about as suspicious as when the Boeing whistleblowers decided to end their run, shall we say. Decided to end their run. Okay, all people confirms. He says that her last name is pronounced Giuffre. Giuffre? Okay, interesting. I'm not familiar with it, because I don't watch really any modern TV or any especially any news shows. I just read it. So often I'm off on some of the pronunciations on names because I never heard them said. And all people says Giuffre did not Epstein herself, and neither did Epstein himself. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. It says Prince Andrew has denied allegations against him, but the public image never recovered from being associated with Epstein. He said he would step back from public duties over his ties to the financier. In January 2022, Queen Elizabeth stripped him of military affiliations and patronages. And soon after, he settled a lawsuit filed by Giuffre and agreed to make a substantial donation to her charity. The deal meant Britain's royal family could avoid a potentially embarrassing trial just before the Queen was planning to celebrate her 70th anniversary on the throne. That makes him sound very guilty. But if I was going to speculate about this, which is why I thought this was interesting, it feels to me like maybe someone higher up leaked it, that proceedings were going to go ahead again. People were going to start looking into this again officially, and they thought that it would be a good idea if she was just gone, if she was just no longer with us. Because, as prominent as she was trying to fight this, and also with 3 children, I find it hard to believe that out of the clear blue sky, she would decide to turn the lights off. Jane says that sounds suspicious, like the Congresswoman found in her bed 2 weeks ago. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very suspicious, like Hillary Clinton suspicious. Tuck is here. Glad you could make it. And Puck says that Pam Bondi's hoping we run out of witnesses. Maybe. Maybe. We'll see. If you can ever really find out, if you can ever really prove it, it's hard to prove these kinds of things. It's hard to prove these kinds of things, but I find that highly suspect. That out of nowhere, she would just decide to do that, especially with heat coming up. With heat coming up on wanting to pursue the Epstein files even further. wanting to pursue that further. And it says, let me see here. Giuffre rose to prominence because she didn't shy away from naming high-profile people and was willing to endure media attention to talk about abuse. After becoming a mother, she resolved to take action, reclaiming her own story so that subsequent generations would not have to endure what she had, according to short description on her nonprofit's website. Doesn't sound to me like someone who just decides to give up all of a sudden. It does not say how this was done. It doesn't say how this was done, unless it's in a different article. It doesn't specify what happened to her. And I'm looking it up. I'm looking at a couple of other things here just really quickly. All it says is that she died basically by her own hand, but no one tells you how that happens or how it happened. There's nothing explaining the method. I would like to know what the method was. Just out of curiosity, I'd like to know what the method was. And I'm not seeing it. If anyone else sees it, you can go ahead and throw it on there. Nature Note says a lot more illegal immigrants are in the country than we thought if 115 were arrested at this party. Pretty much, yeah. We know. You got to remember, for every encounter at the border, there's probably at least one that slipped by that nobody noticed. And there's Granny Smith in the chair behind me. Hey, Granny. Make yourself comfortable, dear. For every one that came across that got vetted, or not even vetted, they didn't vet them. That was part of the problem. Every one that came across the border that was processed, shall we say, there's probably at least one who crossed somewhere else that no one ever saw on the north and southern border. Northern and southern border. So that's something to consider, honestly. And now we can get to the thumbnail, because the thumbnail, I thought this story was the just pinnacle of media hypocrisy. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to demonstrate why. We're going to jump to a Newsner stories. I've been seeing these stories all weekend condemning Trump. Okay. It says Donald Trump disrespected protocol at Pope Francis's funeral. Okay. It says world leaders and high-ranking dignitaries gathered in Rome this weekend for the Pope's final send-off at the Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica after a requiem mass at St. Peter's Basilica. It's estimated over 200,000 people attended the funeral procession at St. Peter's Square, paying tribute to the former head of the Catholic Church, who died from a stroke and heart complications at 88. Some 50 world leaders were in attendance, as well as royalty from several countries. And then they go on to tell you that Pope Francis passed away, blah, blah, blah. Tributes poured in from all around the world about what a progressive pope he was. So there you go. Back to the meat of the article. Joining the other world leaders to pay respects to the late sovereign of the Vatican City State was President Trump, accompanied by his wife, First Lady Melania Trump. Okay. And that's just a protocol thing, whether he cared about the Pope or not. He's the president of the United States, and you're kind of expected to show up. Okay. It goes on to say in the article, and it should hardly come as a surprise that Trump managed to court controversy even on a day where everything should have been as by the book and straightforward as possible. The POTUS was called out online for a number of things at Pope Francis's funeral, with one particular moment being dubbed a disgrace. Meanwhile, Trump's presence was labeled by some of his harsher critics as nothing more than an attempt to appeal to Catholic voters. Again, Trump is a prominent world leader, whether you like it or not. his presence is expected. Okay, it just is, whether he wants to go or not. It's one of those things where they're like, President Trump, you probably should go because it won't look good. If he didn't show up, everybody would be accusing him of thumbing his nose at the Catholic Church. If he does show up, you whine about that. Okay. Let me see. First and foremost, Trump's attire is called into question after he wore a navy blue suit to the ceremony instead of traditional all black, perhaps more expected at a Catholic funeral. And that's primarily the issue, is they're condemning him for having a blue suit on. Okay? Blue suit on. They've been crying about this all weekend. Jane says, question, nothing being done on African or Caribbean immigrants in the U.S. I wonder why. Probably got all papers in order right. Not necessarily. The first order of business is to track down all the special interest migrants, all the migrants that were allowed into the United States that were red flags that were still released on American soil. And they have picked up Caribbean and Africans as well. You might remember way back, one of the first rounds in Boston, they were arresting this Haitian guy that was screaming and yelling about Donald Trump and that he'd be back. Some of you might remember that video. So, but they're concentrating primarily on special interest aliens before they start rounding up everybody else. Luke Man wants to put alligators in the Mexico River border. They'd probably die from the pollution. They'd probably die from the pollution. So they're crying and crying and crying about him wearing a blue suit. And yeah, Puck said the blue hoax blown up within minutes on the interweb. Yeah, they went absolutely bonkers about this. All right. Now here's my point. I'm going to show you some photographs, okay? And I'll describe it because I know there's some people who can't see. So I'm going to open up some photographs here to share with you. Here's the first one. All right. That's Trump in the lower right-hand corner. And for those of you who are looking at that photograph, how many blue suits do you see? Anybody notice any blue suits there? There are several. Probably 30% of the people in that picture are wearing a blue suit, including this one Indian woman wearing a blue sari that's at least the same color and texture of Trump's suit here. Okay? How many blue suits do you see in this audience? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Probably 30% of the people just in that grouping are wearing a blue suit. Are you whining to any of them? Are you accusing any of them of breaking protocol or insulting the Pope's funeral or insulting Catholics? Now, I chose this particular photo because there's something else I wanted to showcase here. All right. Something else I wanted to showcase here. The reason I picked this picture is, if you noticed in the far left-hand lower corner, that's actually Zelensky. That's Voldemort Zelensky. Monkey doesn't get why they're upset over the color of a suit. Well, obviously, the Vatican didn't care. Okay. I mean, yeah, it's sure, at a funeral you should probably wear black. He didn't. I don't care. Vatican didn't care. They could have found him a suit if it was that much of a problem. All right. They said it was that much of a problem. Sven says the Royals came in blue. Yeah, and I'm going to get to that. But that's Zelensky in the lower left-hand corner. Now, you want to talk about being out of order, okay? Zelensky, and most people wouldn't even know this, in this procession for a funeral, at the Vatican, protocol dictates that world leaders sit in alphabetical order by country as translated from French, which would put Zelensky back up here where you see the Arabs sitting in the middle of that group. He should be about 4 rows back at least. They bumped someone to put Zelensky in the front row so they could showcase him. Vatican politics at its finest. That's what they're doing. So, but I don't hear anybody in the media buzzing about that. Did you hear that? I don't think I saw a story for it. I'm pretty sure. And Zelensky wearing what he always wears. Anyone complaining about that? And yeah, I know that Zelensky and Trump had a private sit down because Trump is still trying to throw his hand into negotiating that. And it would have been negotiated by now if Zelensky would listen. But what are you going to do? And Marvel Fan is here. Glad you could make it today, Marvel Fan. Jane says, learn something every day. Love the podcast. Well, I appreciate that. I wish I could get more circulation. I try. But that means nothing to me. And obviously didn't mean anything to them. If it was a huge, big deal, someone at the Vatican, when he arrived, could have said, hey, do you happen to have a black suit? They could have worked it out. They didn't care, so why should we? They've been pounding this in the media all weekend. Oh, Trump embarrassed the United States. Sure. Oh, he's just appealing to Catholic voters. And then what if he didn't go? Again, they'd be crying about that. Oh, he snubbed Catholics. He didn't go to the Pope's funeral. Duh. But that Zelensky being in the front row is actually more of a breach of protocol than anything else. Fluke Man says they're using any crappy excuse to degrade Trump. I heard he's going to abolish income tax for the middle class, but they still hate and want him deleted. Yeah, I know it. Fighting you constantly. Now, back to the images. I got another one to show you. Hold on a second. Here we go. And this was alluded to earlier. This is Prince William in a blue suit. You think anyone said anything to him? Say, hey, Chrome Dome, you're wearing a blue suit. You're supposed to be wearing black at a funeral. And of all people that you would expect to follow perfect protocol, if there was one, it would be someone from the royal family, because they're all about pomp and circumstance. That's what they're trained their whole lives. So if he's not in a breach of protocol, nobody is. Okay? There you go. JJ says, damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation for anything that Trump does. I agree. And if you want to really talk about embarrassment, all right, I give you Joe Biden. It doesn't get more embarrassing than that. President Joe Biden, old number 46 himself. It's the president that he was, and it's his IQ. That suit looks pretty damn blue to me. Don't you think? And talk about breach of protocol. This is the guy who, during the whole funeral, spent the entire time smiling, waving, and taking selfies with other world leaders. Like he's 14 years old at a high school football game. That's embarrassing. Okay, that's embarrassing. Hey, I'm Joe Biden. Take a selfie with me. Let me tell you about my uncle that was eaten by cannibals. Oh my God. Marble says William needs hair for men. Yeah, I think it's a little too late for him on that one. I think it's a little too late for William. He's got the fuzz behind the ears at this point. He's totally bald. He's like a Q-tip. Unbelievable. JJ says at least Trump didn't crap himself. Yeah, I know. I don't know if Joe had an accident. I didn't hear that. But yeah, him running around taking selfies and smiling and waving and being goofy and laughing, again, like a 14-year-old at a high school football game, I think is more embarrassing than Trump in a blue suit. Plus, again, Biden's wearing a blue suit. Anybody say anything about that? Did you see that in the media this weekend? Monkey says media's grasping at straws over something minor. Exactly. And Kimberly thinks 46 for an IQ is giving him too much credit. Well, I mean, at 46, that would put him just under your average German Shepherd, I think. So I don't know. Hey, he was smart enough to stay in politics for more than 50 years while accomplishing almost nothing. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Almost 50 or more than 50 years. More than 50 years in office and accomplished literally nothing that I'm aware of other than something destructive. He managed to unravel our country. He managed to swamp us, mire us in illegal immigration. He managed to spend $11 trillion in one term. One term. He managed to force feed DEI programs into every government agency. Everything he's done. Yeah, Brian says, isn't an IQ under 70 a sign of like, shall we say, Down syndrome? Because I don't think I can say that word on YouTube. I believe so. I believe so. I believe so. But that's not embarrassing. That's not embarrassing at all. That's not embarrassing at all. But yeah, we're going to attack Trump relentlessly as a result. There's something else I wanted to show here. I don't know if the image is going to clear. I don't think it is. But I can fix it and pull it up another time. I'll do it tomorrow. I will do it tomorrow. Huck says Biden is the senator from the Manchurian Candidate. Jill is Angela Lansbury. Is she? The senator from the Manchurian Candidate. The one with Frank Sinatra or the modern one with Denzel Washington? While we're on the yeah, here we go. Nature Nerd says Joe Biden created the legislation that allowed Delaware credit card companies to have high interest rates, ruining a lot of people's lives with sky-high debt. Indeed. Speaking of debt, since you brought it up, we're going to jump to a New York Post article. I got a kick out of this. Jessica Ramos wants to oversee New York City's $112 billion budget, but defaults on $80,000 in student loans. And Jessica Ramos, by the way, is a New York senator. A New York senator. So, and this is her right here. Jessica Ramos. Okay. Obviously. 39. Wow, she looks a lot older than 39. She didn't age well. Or she's not aging well, I should say. So mayoral candidate Jessica Ramos wants to manage the city's $112 billion budget, but she failed to get her own fiscal house in order, defaulting on nearly $80,000 in student loans. It's recently been discovered by the Post. Two filings in Queens State Supreme Court from 2019 show that Ramos, a state senator, defaulted on a pair of loans, one for $35,757.21 and the other for $42,550.25. 6 years later, because this was her in court in 2019. So she can't blame COVID. She apparently still owes the $78,307.46 in combined loans. And a quote, the Post mocks a quote from her here, where she says, "I'm part of the generation that is saddled with student debt." The candidate's mother, Melfi Londano, is listed as a co-plaintiff in the default judgments, which were filed the year after Ramos became state senator. In both cases, court papers filed by lawyers Foster and Garvis on behalf of the student loan lender said no part of said sum has been paid, although duly demanded. So not only was she in default and not only ordered to pay, but she was taken to court and court ordered to pay 6 years ago and still has not put a dime on that debt. Okay? And claims that she's part of the community of students saddled with student debt. Quote, "Like millions in my generation, I faced the impossible choice between financial survival and student loan payments. I prioritized building a safe, stable life for my family. This experience only deepens my commitment to fighting for a fair economy where people aren't punished for seeking education." All right. It says that so far her campaign has raised almost $250,000, $232,292 her campaign has raised. Now, just for context, and I'm going to tell you something about this woman. Yeah, Puck wants her reported. John says they're all goofballs no matter the costume. Okay, fair enough. Tuck says that's big money. It's big money to me. JJ says, I'm starting to think financial irresponsibility is a requirement for running for office. And Fluke Man says, is Trump going after unpaid student loans? He reactivated it. Joe Biden shut off student loan. Well, at the very end of the Trump administration, when COVID first started, Trump temporarily suspended it. He put a suspension of a few months in effect to give people a chance to get situated. Biden extended it throughout his entire tenure as president. So it should have been reactivated to pursue student loan debt years ago. Biden wouldn't allow it. Now, Ramos here, okay, court ordered in 2019, taken to court because her student loan was so high, almost $80,000, $78,000 and change. Court ordered to pay it back or to start making payments. Has still, not to this day, made a single payment on her student loans. Claims she's saddled with student debt. Okay? Quotes, and I'll read the quote again. Like millions in my generation, I face the impossible choice between financial survival and student loan payments. I will also tell you now, like most senators, that Ramos is a multimillionaire. She's worth millions. She has millions of dollars. Bitch, you can't pay your student loan? You could pay it off in one day while you pretend to be struggling. You just don't want to pay it. You just don't want to pay it. That's the bottom line. She's worth millions. And for clarification, just to show you, I'm not making it up. Okay, let me pull up her name here. I'm going to worth. Okay, let's give it a moment here. All right, hold on a second, and I'll transition the page. I'll transition this page. Nature Nerd says, what does it say about a person's character when they refuse to pay back a student loan? And if you have no money, I can understand being stuck and not being able to do it. This woman can afford it. Jessica Ramos, American politician from the state of New York, a Democrat representing District 13 in New York since 2019. So she became a senator the same year that she was taken to court for student loan debt. Currently running for mayor of New York. Estimated net worth around $5 million. Primarily from fight purses, sponsorships, and endorsements. Fight purses, is she a boxer? Or is she a gambler? Regardless, she's got a net worth of $5 million. Okay. Net worth $5 million, refuses to pay back her student loan, even after being court ordered to do so. Currently running for mayor of New York. And you're going to trust her to run a budget. Fluke Man says colleges are overpriced. We all know that, but what car does she drive? What clothes does she wear? How much does she spend going out, etc.? Yeah, she's a bad steward of her money. Bad steward of her finances. She probably does live high on the hog. Puck says 80,000 sounds like a felony. Yeah. It would be under normal circumstances. I don't know how it works out with student loan debt, but that's why it was being pursued. They were like, lady, you're a state senator and you have the money to pay it. They took her to court and said, hey, pay this. Court ordered to do so and won't do it. Still won't do it. Nature Nerd wants to know how she got $5 million. I have no idea. How do they all get money? How did any of them get money? How did Bernie Sanders go from 0 to millions? I don't know. Dirty deals done dirt cheap, I guess. Democrat Party doesn't surprise me. Career in politics. Director of Latino Media for New York City, Queens County Democrat district leader, blah, 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 whatever. But this is what you get. And that sums it up, JJ. The fact that she's a millionaire and refuses to pay back 80,000 student loans seems rather douchey. Yes, it does. She has the ability to pay it. I mean, like I said, I can understand, man, you're broke, you're not working, whatever. There are circumstances by which you might not be able to pay it. And I hate reading these stories where they can. I hate reading these stories where you've got someone who's retired even, and they still owe like 60,000 on their student loans because they never paid them. And it's like, you worked for 40 years as a nurse or as a teacher or as a doctor or in some other profession and never paid your student loan because you just didn't want to pay it. You just didn't want to. You see stories like this all the time. And I think that's particularly just awful. Under her circumstances, she can afford to do it and won't. Puck says, can you imagine Trump having 80,000 in student loan debt? If he had it and didn't pay it, oh, they'd be screaming. They'd be screaming. But he's smarter than that. I don't think he owes any student loans. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. And like I said, I owe on student loans. And the reason I won't pay it is because they okey-doked me. I was down to about $2,000 and I got a deferment because I was unemployed. And then they turned around and said that I owed them like $9,400, $9,600, something like that. And I was like, I'm not paying that. I owed $2,000. And until it gets sorted out, I won't make a payment on it. That's my deal. But that's a different story. But this woman has the means. Has the means, won't do it. And there's too many stories like this. I've read several of these. And then has the nerve to try to pretend to be in touch with constituents by saying, oh, like many of you, I've had to decide between student loans and paying the bills. Bitch, please. Fluke Man says, why didn't the loan companies go after them on day one? I don't know. Well, it sounds, again, since they took her to court in 2019, it sounds like they've been actively pursuing her. They've been actively pursuing her. Unsuccessfully, apparently. Unsuccessfully. Actively pursuing her. Oh, I've still got Granny Smith sitting back there. Granny Smith will be sleeping back there for a while. Little sausage. Little furry sausage. That's what she is. Tiny little goofy thing. She really is very petite, actually. She is pretty petite. She's a good cat, though. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. But yeah, that would be a terrible choice for mayor. Absolutely terrible choice for mayor. She cheats her own budget. Probably lives high on the hog. I wouldn't be surprised, as alluded to earlier, that that she probably has a real expensive car, really expensive tailored clothing, expensive jewelry, whatever. Kimberly says they don't garnish wages. She wants to know if they, I don't know. I don't know, because I never had them go after my wages. So I'm not sure. Everyone else does. The IRS will do it. The child support will do it. And I know certain other charges will do it. You know, like if you default on a car and they repossess it and they charge you the difference, they will garnish you. I'm not sure about student loans, though. I'm not off the top of my head. Sven says, I asked my anesthesiologist before surgery if he was good at his job. He said he's so good he paid off all his student debt back within 10 years. There you go. There's no excuse for it. If you get into your profession and you're making a good wage, good middle class wage, is no excuse. That's why I hate all these teachers and nurses, especially teachers and nurses, are infamous for this. Okay, they never pay them. Some do, but many of them never pay them, and then they retire that way, and then cry that they have student loan debt. Oh, I owe $30,000. I owe $40,000. You had a good, high-paying middle-class job for decades and didn't pay it. You didn't pay it because you know that there's a program that will pay it off for nurses and for teachers, and you're hoping to tap into that and never pay it back. You're trying to okey-doke the system and make the taxpayer pick it up, which I have no respect for that. No respect for it. As we jump into the debt clock, U.S. debt clock here, and we'll take a look and see where Doge is currently at. Chiming in at a projected savings of $370 billion. $370 billion and counting. $370 billion and counting. Way to go, Doge. And with that, we are at the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On YouTube, you can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you again tomorrow.